The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the weathered concrete floor of the Marikina Community Center, where hundreds of local families had gathered for the annual charity boxing exhibition. Children pressed their faces against the metal barriers, their eyes wide with anticipation as they waited for their hero to arrive. The air buzzed with excitement, and the familiar sounds of Tagalog conversations mixed with vendors selling balut and fishballs outside. Colorful banners hung from the ceiling, bearing Manny Pacquiao's image alongside messages of hope and community unity. The scent of jasmine flowers from nearby garlands mingled with the humid Manila air that drifted through the open windows. Angelo, the event coordinator, nervously checked his watch as he supervised the final preparations. The makeshift boxing ring stood in the center of the room, surrounded by plastic chairs that had been donated by local businesses. Mothers fanned themselves with folded newspapers, while fathers lifted their children onto their shoulders for a better view. The excited chatter grew louder as someone spotted the familiar convoy of black vehicles pulling up outside. Security personnel took their positions, but the atmosphere remained warm and welcoming, true to Manny's preference for intimate community gatherings over formal ceremonies. In the far corner of the room, away from the main crowd, a small figure sat quietly on a wooden bench. 10-year-old Miguel clutched a worn piece of cardboard with Manny's picture carefully drawn in pencil, his artistic attempt at creating his own poster. His clothes were clean but obviously too large, hand-me-downs from the orphanage where he lived with 30 other children. Unlike the other kids who bounced with excitement, Miguel remained still, as if afraid that any sudden movement might cause this moment to disappear. His dark eyes held a maturity that seemed beyond his years, the kind that comes from understanding disappointment too well. The community center erupted in cheers as Manny Pacquiao stepped through the entrance, his infectious smile immediately lighting up the room. He moved through the crowd with genuine warmth, shaking hands with fathers, embracing mothers, and playfully shadowboxing with eager children. His simple white polo shirt and jeans made him approachable, never creating distance between himself and the people who had supported him throughout his career. The way he listened intently to each person who spoke to him, nodding and responding in fluent Tagalog, reminded everyone why he remained beloved despite his global fame. Camera flashes captured moments of pure joy as families posed with their champion. Manny, the orphanage director, had brought 12 children to the event, hoping to give them a rare moment of excitement in their structured lives. He kept a careful count of his group, knowing how easy it would be for a child to get lost in the enthusiastic crowd. The children from the orphanage stood out slightly, their matching t-shirts identifying them as a group, but their faces showed the same wonder as every other child in the room. Manny had specifically chosen this outing because he knew Manny's story would resonate with children who, like the champion, had experienced poverty and hardship. He hoped seeing Manny would plant seeds of possibility in their young minds. As the exhibition matches began, the crowd pressed closer to the ring, leaving the edges of the room quieter. Miguel found himself even more isolated as other children moved forward with their families. He remained on his bench, content to watch from a distance, his handmade poster resting on his lap. The sounds of leather gloves hitting pads echoed through the space, mixed with encouragement from the crowd, and Manny's patient instructions to the young boxers he was training. For Miguel, simply being in the same room as his hero felt like enough. He had never dared to dream of anything more than this distant glimpse of greatness. Miguel had lived at the Bahay Aruga orphanage for 3 years, ever since a typhoon had swept through his coastal village and claimed both his parents. Unlike some of the other children who had arrived as infants, Miguel carried clear memories of his mother's lullabies and his father's calloused hands teaching him to tie fishing nets. These memories were both his treasure and his burden, providing comfort during lonely nights, but also highlighting the magnitude of his loss. The orphanage staff, led by the compassionate sister Isadora, did their best to provide love and structure, but 30 children made individual attention a precious commodity. In the orphanage dormitory, Miguel's bunk was marked by 2 possessions that he guarded carefully: a faded photograph of his parents and a notebook filled with drawings of boxers. He had taught himself to draw by copying images from old sports magazines that visitors sometimes donated. His favorite subjects were fighters in action, their faces showing determination and strength that he hoped to embody someday. The other children often gathered around when he drew, marveling at his ability to capture movement and emotion with just a pencil. Art had become his language when words felt inadequate to express the complex emotions of an orphaned child. The notebook also contained newspaper clippings about Manny Pacquiao that Miguel had carefully collected over the months. He had read each article dozens of times, memorizing statistics and stories about the champion's rise from poverty. What fascinated Miguel most were not the victories or the wealth, but the accounts of Manny's childhood struggles. In those stories, Miguel saw reflections of his own hunger, his own uncertainty about the future, and his own dreams of somehow rising above his circumstances. The knowledge that greatness could emerge from such humble beginnings kept hope alive in his heart. At the community center, Miguel watched as Manny demonstrated basic boxing combinations to enthusiastic children. The champion's patience was evident as he adjusted stances, corrected form, and offered encouragement in the gentle tone of a natural teacher. Miguel's keen eyes absorbed every movement, every instruction, storing them in his memory for later practice in the orphanage courtyard. He had fashioned a makeshift punching bag from old clothes and rope, spending hours shadowboxing, while imagining Manny's voice guiding his movements. These solo training sessions had become his meditation, his way of channeling frustration and loneliness into something purposeful. Renato, an older boy from the orphanage, noticed Miguel sitting alone and approached with genuine concern. The 15-year-old had taken on a protective role with the younger children, understanding the importance of looking out for one another when adults were spread thin. He sat beside Miguel and pointed toward the ring where Manny was now signing autographs for a group of teenage girls. Renato suggested they join the line, but Miguel shook his head politely, explaining that he was happy just watching. The older boy respected Miguel's preference, but remained nearby, sensing something deeper in the younger child's contemplative demeanor. As the afternoon progressed, Miguel's artistic eye began capturing mental images of the scene before him. He observed how the light from the windows illuminated Manny's face when he laughed, how his hands moved with unconscious grace, even during casual conversation, and how his presence seemed to elevate everyone around him. Miguel planned to recreate these moments in his notebook later, adding to his collection of memories and inspirations. The cardboard poster on his lap became slightly crumpled from his nervous grip, but the carefully drawn image of Manny remained clear. In his mind, Miguel was already composing the story he would tell the other children who had been too sick to attend the event. As the formal program began winding down, Manny stepped away from the ring to take a brief break. His trained fighter's instincts made him naturally observant, a skill that had served him well both in the ring and in reading people throughout his life. While sipping water from a plastic bottle, his gaze swept across the room and landed on the solitary figure in the corner. Something about the boy's stillness amid the chaos caught his attention immediately. Unlike the other children who bounced with energy and excitement, this child sat with a composure that reminded Manny of himself during his early days in General Santos City, watching boxing matches from outside the gym because he couldn't afford entry fees. Manny excused himself from the group of adults discussing plans for future community programs and began walking toward Miguel's corner. His movement was casual, not wanting to draw attention that might overwhelm the obviously shy child. As he approached, he noticed the hand-drawn poster and felt a warmth spread through his chest. The artwork showed remarkable detail and effort, clearly created with love and dedication rather than expensive materials. The image captured not just his physical likeness, but somehow conveyed the intensity he brought to the ring. Manny had received thousands of professional posters and artwork over the years, but something about this simple cardboard creation moved him deeply. Miguel looked up in shock as the shadow fell across his bench, his heart racing as he realized who was standing before him. The notebook nearly slipped from his lap as he fumbled to stand, unsure of the proper protocol for meeting his hero. Manny's warm smile immediately put him at ease, and the champion gestured for him to remain seated while settling down beside him on the wooden bench. The simple act of sitting at Miguel's level rather than standing above him spoke volumes about Manny's character and his understanding of how to connect with children. The noise of the room seemed to fade as the two found themselves in their own small bubble of conversation. Without words initially, Manny pointed to the poster and nodded approvingly, his expression showing genuine admiration for Miguel's artistic talent. The boy's face lit up with pride and surprise that someone had noticed his work, let alone appreciated it. Manny then noticed the notebook and gestured to ask if he could see it, his curiosity evident but respectful. Miguel hesitated for only a moment before opening to a page filled with boxing sketches, his trust in Manny overcoming his usual shyness about sharing his art. Page after page revealed not just talent, but deep passion and study of the sport that had shaped both their lives in different ways. The conversation that followed was conducted in hushed Tagalog, with Manny asking gentle questions about Miguel's drawings and the boy responding in increasingly confident whispers. Miguel explained how he had learned to draw by copying magazine pictures, how he practiced boxing moves in the orphanage courtyard, and how Manny's story had given him hope during difficult moments. Manny listened with the same intensity he brought to studying opponents, recognizing in this child a hunger and determination that transcended circumstances. The champion's questions were never intrusive, allowing Miguel to share only what felt comfortable while encouraging him to open up gradually. As their conversation deepened, other attendees began to notice the interaction, but Manny remained focused entirely on Miguel. This ability to be completely present with whoever was in front of him was one of Manny's most remarkable qualities, whether facing opponents in the ring or connecting with fans in moments like this. Miguel found himself sharing dreams he had never spoken aloud, talking about his parents, and expressing his love for boxing with an eloquence that surprised even himself. The connection forming between them was natural and profound, two souls who understood struggle, dreams, and the power of refusing to give up despite overwhelming odds. After spending nearly 20 minutes in deep conversation with Miguel, Manny made a decision that would alter the trajectory of the young boy's life forever. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts until he found the number he was looking for. The call was brief but purposeful, conducted in rapid Tagalog as Miguel watched with growing curiosity and wonder. When Manny ended the call, he turned to Miguel with an expression that was both serious and filled with paternal warmth. He explained that he had just spoken with his friend Carlo, who owned a boxing gym in nearby Quezon City and who had been looking for a young apprentice to help around the facility. The offer Manny presented was comprehensive and life-changing. Miguel would live in a small apartment above the gym, receiving free room and board in exchange for basic maintenance duties, like cleaning equipment and organizing supplies. More importantly, he would receive free boxing training from Carlo, who had been an amateur champion before becoming a respected trainer. Manny promised to visit regularly to monitor Miguel's progress and provide additional guidance. The arrangement would also include enrollment in a local public school, ensuring that Miguel's education continued alongside his athletic development. As he outlined these plans, Manny watched Miguel's face transform from disbelief to overwhelming emotion. Miguel's reaction was immediate and visceral. Tears began streaming down his cheeks as the magnitude of what was being offered sank in. This wasn't just a chance to learn boxing or escape the limitations of orphanage life. It was an opportunity to have a future, to develop his talents, and to honor the memory of his parents by making something meaningful of his life. His voice cracked as he attempted to express his gratitude, but Manny gently placed a hand on his shoulder and explained that no thanks were necessary. The champion shared that helping young people discover their potential was one of the greatest privileges of his success, and that Miguel's obvious dedication and talent made this decision easy. The practical arrangements happened with remarkable efficiency. Manny called Sister Isadora at the orphanage to explain the opportunity and ensure proper legal protocols were followed. The nun, who had watched Miguel struggle with loneliness and channel his emotions into art and exercise, immediately recognized the blessing this represented. She agreed to help with the transition, understanding that while she would miss Miguel's quiet presence at the orphanage, this chance was exactly what the boy needed to flourish. The paperwork could be completed within a week, and Miguel could begin his new life at the gym shortly after. As the community center event concluded, Miguel clutched his cardboard poster with trembling hands, knowing that it had somehow become a catalyst for this miraculous turn of events. Manny signed the poster with a personal message of encouragement, but more importantly, he wrote his personal phone number on the back and instructed Miguel to call whenever he needed guidance or support. The gesture demonstrated that this was not just a momentary act of charity, but the beginning of a genuine mentorship relationship. Other attendees began to gather around as word of Manny's incredible generosity spread through the crowd. But the champion kept his focus on Miguel, ensuring the boy understood exactly what would happen next. Before leaving, Manny made one final gesture that brought fresh tears to Miguel's eyes. He removed the gloves he had been wearing during the exhibition and handed them to the boy, explaining that they had been blessed with many victories and would now serve as inspiration for Miguel's own journey. The gloves were far too large for Miguel's small hands, but he held them like precious relics, understanding their symbolic significance. As Manny's convoy prepared to leave, he promised Miguel that this was not goodbye, but rather the beginning of a new chapter in both their lives. The boy stood at the community center entrance, watching his hero depart while holding proof that dreams really could come true. Within 2 weeks of that fateful meeting, Miguel found himself standing in the doorway of the Pacquiao boxing gym, a modest facility tucked between a computer repair shop and a small restaurant in Quezon City. The gym smelled of leather, sweat, and determination, with the rhythmic sounds of heavy bags being struck, creating a soundtrack that would become the backdrop of his new life. Carlo, a stocky man in his 40s with kind eyes and scarred knuckles, welcomed Miguel with the same warmth that Manny had shown at the community center. The apartment above the gym was small but clean, containing everything a growing boy would need: a single bed, a desk for homework, and a window that overlooked the busy street below. Miguel's daily routine began before sunrise, starting with sweeping the gym floor and organizing equipment, while Carlo prepared for the day's training sessions. These early morning hours became precious to Miguel, allowing him to familiarize himself with every piece of equipment and absorb the atmosphere of serious athletic preparation. He learned to wrap hand wraps properly, maintain the heavy bags, and keep detailed records of gym members' progress. The responsibility gave him a sense of purpose and belonging that he had never experienced at the orphanage. Carlo observed Miguel's work ethic with growing admiration, noting how the boy approached even mundane tasks with dedication and pride. The boxing training began gradually, with Carlo focusing first on fundamental footwork and basic conditioning. Miguel's natural athleticism, honed by months of shadowboxing in the orphanage courtyard, impressed his new trainer immediately. More importantly, Carlo recognized the mental toughness that Miguel had developed through adversity, understanding that this psychological strength would serve him well in the demanding sport of boxing. The boy's notebook of drawings had evolved into a training journal where he recorded new techniques, tracked his progress, and wrote reflections about his experiences. His artistic talents now served a practical purpose, creating detailed diagrams of boxing combinations and strategies. School presented its own challenges and rewards for Miguel. Enrolled at the local public school, he initially struggled with the social dynamics of being the new student who lived above a boxing gym. However, his quiet confidence and respectful demeanor soon earned him acceptance among his classmates. His teachers noticed his exceptional focus and determination, qualities that served him well in academic subjects. Miguel approached his studies with the same intensity he brought to boxing training, understanding that education was equally important to his future success. His notebooks became filled with school assignments alongside boxing techniques, representing the balanced development that Manny had envisioned for him. True to his promise, Manny visited the gym monthly, each appearance creating excitement throughout the facility. During these visits, he worked personally with Miguel, offering technical guidance and sharing insights about the mental aspects of boxing that couldn't be learned from any textbook. Manny's presence elevated everyone's training, but he always made special time for Miguel, reviewing his progress and adjusting his development plan. These sessions became masterclasses in boxing excellence, with other gym members gathering to observe and learn. Miguel absorbed every word, every demonstration, storing them in his memory and his ever-present notebook. The transformation in Miguel's confidence was remarkable to witness. The shy, withdrawn boy from the orphanage was evolving into a focused young athlete with clear goals and unwavering determination. His growth wasn't just physical, though his muscles were developing and his coordination improving dramatically. The change was evident in his posture, his eye contact, and his willingness to engage with others. Carlo often remarked to other trainers about Miguel's unique combination of humility and ambition, noting how the boy remained grateful for every opportunity while pushing himself to achieve excellence. The foundations for greatness were being laid one day at a time, one training session at a time, one small victory at a time. 6 months after moving to the gym, Miguel had evolved into an indispensable part of the Pacquiao boxing gym community. His morning routine now included assisting newer members with basic techniques. His patience and gentle teaching style, reminiscent of Manny's own approach with young fighters. The shy orphan had developed into a confident young man who balanced respect for his mentors with natural leadership abilities among his peers. His technical skills had progressed rapidly under Carlo's expert guidance, and he was beginning to spar with other junior fighters, demonstrating a boxing IQ that impressed veteran trainers. The notebook that had once contained copied magazine pictures now held original strategies and training philosophies developed through his daily experiences. Miguel's academic performance had flourished alongside his athletic development. His teachers noted his exceptional ability to focus, his respectful interaction with classmates, and his mature approach to learning. He had become particularly strong in mathematics and science, subjects that Carlo explained would help him understand the physics and strategy behind effective boxing techniques. Miguel's essays often drew parallels between boxing training and life lessons, demonstrating a philosophical depth that surprised his educators. His artwork had evolved as well, now featuring detailed anatomical drawings of boxing techniques and motivational posters that decorated the gym walls. The relationship between Miguel and Manny had deepened beyond mere mentorship into something resembling family. During his monthly visits, Manny would often bring his own children to the gym, and they had embraced Miguel as an honorary brother. Pacquiao had also taken an interest in Miguel's development, occasionally sending care packages with healthy snacks and encouraging notes. The Pacquiao family's inclusion of Miguel in their circle provided him with the familial warmth he had missed since losing his parents. These connections taught him that success wasn't just about individual achievement, but about building relationships and lifting others along the way. Miguel's first amateur bout took place on a humid Saturday afternoon at a small venue in Manila, with Carlo, Manny, and several gym members in attendance. The months of preparation had led to this moment, and Miguel felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement as he warmed up in the small dressing room. The opponent was slightly older and more experienced, but Miguel's technical training and mental preparation gave him confidence. As he entered the ring, he carried with him not just his own dreams, but the hopes of everyone who had invested in his journey. The fight itself was a coming-of-age moment, showcasing his developing skills while revealing areas that still needed improvement. The bout ended with Miguel winning a close decision, but more importantly, it demonstrated his character under pressure. He showed respect for his opponent before and after the fight, displayed excellent sportsmanship throughout the contest, and handled both the victory and the accompanying attention with mature humility. Manny's pride was evident as he embraced Miguel after the fight, seeing in the young man's performance the fruits of their collective investment in his development. The victory celebration at a nearby restaurant became a family affair, with the Pacquiao family treating Miguel as one of their own while Carlo beamed with trainer's pride. That evening, as Miguel sat in his apartment above the gym, he opened his notebook to record his thoughts about the day. The pages that had once been filled with copied images of his hero now contained his own experiences, his own victories, and his own plans for the future. He wrote about his gratitude to Manny, his respect for Carlo, and his determination to honor the sacrifices that had been made for his success. The orphaned boy who had sat quietly in the corner of a community center had transformed into a young man with purpose, direction, and the tools necessary to chase his dreams. The journey that had begun with a simple gesture was now revealing its true magnitude. 2 years after his first amateur victory, Miguel had established himself as one of the most promising young boxers in the regional amateur circuit. His record stood at 15 wins with only 2 losses, both to more experienced fighters in learning experiences that had ultimately strengthened his resolve and improved his skills. Carlo had connected him with additional trainers who specialized in different aspects of the sport, creating a comprehensive development program that addressed every facet of boxing excellence. Miguel's reputation had grown beyond the gym, with other trainers and promoters beginning to take notice of the articulate, respectful young fighter who carried himself with unusual maturity both inside and outside the ring. Manny's involvement in Miguel's development had evolved to include broader life guidance beyond boxing instruction. During their regular meetings, they discussed financial literacy, the importance of education, and the responsibilities that come with athletic success. Manny shared stories about his own journey, including mistakes he had made and lessons he had learned, providing Miguel with a roadmap for navigating the complex world of professional sports. These conversations often took place during long walks through the neighborhood, allowing for private discussions about goals, values, and the kind of man Miguel wanted to become. The mentorship had transcended sport to encompass character development and life preparation. Miguel's academic achievements had kept pace with his athletic progress, maintaining high grades while managing an increasingly demanding training schedule. His teachers had nominated him for a scholarship program that would allow him to attend a prestigious private school while continuing his boxing career. The opportunity represented another step forward in his development, providing access to better educational resources and college preparation programs. Miguel approached this decision with the same analytical mindset he brought to boxing strategy, weighing the benefits and challenges while seeking advice from his mentors. His maturity in handling such decisions impressed everyone involved in his development. The gym had become a second home, not just for Miguel, but for a growing number of young fighters who were drawn by the success story unfolding there. Carlo had officially designated Miguel as a junior instructor, recognizing his natural teaching ability and his positive influence on newer members. Miguel took this responsibility seriously, remembering his own early days and ensuring that every newcomer received encouragement and proper guidance. His notebook had evolved into multiple volumes, now including training programs he had developed for different skill levels and motivational strategies for helping young fighters overcome obstacles. The orphaned boy was becoming a leader and mentor to others. Manny's visits had become community events, with local media occasionally covering his interactions with the young fighters at Pacquiao boxing gym. These appearances provided Miguel with exposure to the business side of professional boxing, while reinforcing the values that had guided his development. Manny consistently emphasized the importance of remaining humble despite success, using one's platform to help others, and never forgetting the people who had provided support during difficult times. Miguel absorbed these lessons completely, understanding that his own success would eventually create opportunities to impact other young lives. The cycle of mentorship and giving back was already forming in his mind. During a particularly meaningful conversation, Manny revealed to Miguel that he had been documenting their journey together, planning to eventually share their story as inspiration for other young people facing similar challenges. Miguel was honored by this revelation, understanding that his transformation had significance beyond his individual achievements. The boy who had once drawn pictures of his hero was now part of a story that could inspire countless others to pursue their dreams despite difficult circumstances. As he reflected on his journey from orphaned spectator to promising young boxer, Miguel felt a deep sense of responsibility to live up to the investment that had been made in his future and to eventually provide similar opportunities for others. 5 years after that life-changing encounter at the Marikina Community Center, Miguel had grown into a confident 18-year-old with a bright future ahead of him. His amateur boxing record now included national tournament victories and selection for the Philippine national youth team, achievements that had once seemed impossible for the quiet orphan who had sat alone at that community event. More importantly, he had developed into a young man of character, balancing athletic excellence with academic achievement and community involvement. His high school graduation had been attended by the Pacquiao family, Carlos, and many of the gym members who had watched him grow, creating a celebration that felt like a family reunion for the boy who had once had no family at all. The scholarship he had earned led to enrollment at a prestigious university where he would study business administration while continuing his boxing career. Miguel's long-term goals included not just personal athletic success, but the eventual establishment of his own gym and youth development programs. His detailed plans, still recorded in notebooks that had multiplied over the years, outlined comprehensive strategies for helping disadvantaged youth through sports and education. Manny had reviewed these plans during their recent meetings, offering guidance while marveling at the sophisticated thinking of his young protégé. The mentor was witnessing his student evolve into someone who would soon be capable of creating positive change independently. The gym that had become Miguel's home now featured a prominent display case containing his amateur trophies, newspaper clippings about his achievements, and the original cardboard poster he had drawn for that community center event. The poster, now carefully preserved behind glass, served as a reminder to all the young fighters who trained there that extraordinary journeys could begin with simple dreams and sincere effort. Miguel had become the gym's most successful product, but more importantly, he had become proof that investing in young people could yield returns that extended far beyond individual achievement. His story had inspired dozens of other young fighters to pursue their own goals with dedication and integrity. Manny's role in Miguel's life had naturally evolved from active mentor to proud observer as the young man developed independence and leadership skills. Their monthly meetings had become consultations between colleagues rather than instruction sessions between teacher and student. Miguel now sought Manny's advice on complex decisions about his future, discussions that often lasted hours as they explored various possibilities and implications. The champion took particular pride in Miguel's character development, noting how success had not diminished his humility, gratitude, or commitment to helping others. The values that had been nurtured during Miguel's formative years at the gym had become integral parts of his identity. The broader community had taken notice of Miguel's remarkable transformation, with local media featuring his story as an example of how mentorship and opportunity could change lives. Several business leaders had approached him about sponsorship opportunities for his university education and future boxing career. Miguel handled these opportunities with the same thoughtful analysis he applied to everything else, always consulting with Manny and Carlo before making decisions. His approach to these early business relationships demonstrated the maturity and wisdom that had been cultivated through years of proper guidance and gradual responsibility increases. As Miguel prepared to leave for university, he spent his final evening at the gym writing in his notebook, this time crafting a letter of gratitude to Manny that attempted to express the magnitude of what one simple gesture had accomplished. The letter spoke of dreams realized, potential unlocked, and a future filled with possibilities that had once seemed impossible. More importantly, it outlined Miguel's commitment to honoring the investment made in his life by eventually providing similar opportunities for other young people who needed hope and guidance. The orphaned boy who had once watched his hero from across a crowded room had become a young man ready to be someone else's hero. The cycle of inspiration and transformation would continue, ensuring that the impact of that afternoon encounter would extend far beyond two lives to touch countless others in the years to come. If you like this story, leave your like and subscribe to our channel.